Hello again. I don't know how.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My apologies to all the viewers. माफी चाहता हूँ आपसे. इसमें there's nothing that we could do. But sorry, Anup, please continue. I'm so sorry.
तो हर फिल्म का अपना एक रिदम होता है. जब आप गुरुदत्त की फिल्में देखते हैं तो एक म्यूजिक जो फिल्मों के अंदर है वो तो है, लेकिन फिल्म की अपनी ही एक मेलोडी होती है. जब हम सोचते हैं, समझ लीजिए प्यासा के बारे में, there is a kind of way that Pyasa works inside us, almost as though a tune in our spirit, And if we think of some film like Dabang, for example, then there is a kind of erratic play of rhythm, And it shakes us, it moves us, it just takes us forward, pushes us. In the same
Anup?
Important because that rhythm gives us a sense of the larger world of the film. Not just the story, but our way of looking at the world. That there are certain films, that want you to only look at, let's say, the social problems. There are certain films that want you to look at what is our responsibility in the creation of these social problems. There are other films that have nothing to do with social problems, but they deal with what does it mean to live. So there is a certain perception, a way of looking that every filmmaker has. And I think the kind of rhythm that I've found in my films gives you an insight into how I look at the world. And this is the worldview, if you like, that I would like to share with my audiences.
Right. So इस worldview में सिर्फ actors, who are great performers, की सिर्फ जरूरत नहीं है, but आपको जरूरत है एक music, जो cinematography हो, sound हो, editing हो. So technicals also have to be very refined to kind of push that narrative forward. There was a question on music, so I guess music is something which has always been integral. The way you've chosen music, and your music is again come from the very earth. I mean, you've had very early music, So how do you choose your music? Madan Gopal saying, you have a lot of influence of Sufiness in your cinema. So थोड़ा उसकी भी बात करें.
As I said, a film is the way that you see the world. And there is certainly something about Madan's music that is very important to me in my films. If you see Madan singing, for example, there is a quality of unhurriedness about him. He doesn't hurry. There's a quality of not knowing where you are going. There's a little meandering, as though you wander a little. And you never know कि आपका goal क्या है. Throughout every phrase that he sings, there is a searching, But this searching is without any panic. It is a calm searching. I am making this, but am I making this, or is this phrase making me? There's a wonderful relationship that is happening between the two. And when I work towards the music of my films, let's say even with my French composer, Béatrice Thirier, who has done music for Qissa as well as the Song of Scorpions, one of the things that I'm looking for is precisely this, that will this musician, will this composer be able to not give me music that is finished.
Anup, there's a beautiful. Anup, sorry. There's a beautiful comment. Qissa
Yes.
is one of the most compelling films of our times in all respects. Been a pleasure watching it, and one of the most memorable films that Irrfan leaves behind. Thank you so much on behalf of Anup and on behalf of NFTC. हम आपके शुक्रगुजार हैं. Anup, आप कह रहे थे, please.
So, Beatrice Thierry, Madan Gopal saying Tipu, who composed the songs for Qissa, you know, I am looking at them to help me find music which does not tell you this is how you must feel. This is a dramatic moment, or this is a sad moment, so the music is also dramatic and sad, you know. But I want the music to suggest to you, you know, that there is something else happening under the sadness, that there is something else happening under the drama, you know. So when you look at the film, you're not like immersed in it, which I hope you are, but, you know, not completely immersed in it. There's a part of you saying, there's something else happening here. And it is happening inside me and I can't name it, you know. I want my audience to feel that there are things inside us that we cannot name, that we cannot put our hands on, you know. And the rhythms of my film, the music of my film, the editing, the cinematography, they are all worked very, very carefully to allow this kind of emotion which we cannot put our hands on, which we cannot grasp, but which we feel strongly inside us. That is my attempt.
Just to tell our viewers that Qissa is available on www.cinemasofIndia.com. Anup, when are we going to see Songs of Scorpion? I mean, is there a release in India, or is it going to be out soon? A lot of our viewers would love to see songs.
I have good news. I have very good news. So at the moment, we are speaking with a distributor who is passionate about
Congratulations.
Film in India.
Right.
It will release in cinemas.
Right.
Obviously, in the big cities, you know.
Right.
And then it will go to an OTT platform.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. I think you should put that out, and we all look forward. I think all our viewers who have kindly tuned in today to listen to you and an ode to Irrfan are also excited about wanting to watch Songs of the Scorpion. So I'm sure they'll get to hear from you through your various social media accounts.
Yes.
And of course, you post it on your Insta. Coming back, you know, there's a beautiful comment which we got, and it says, Anup, your accessing of the unsaidness is breathtaking. What do you have to say to that?
Well, in a way, I spoke about that, and thank you.
Right, I know you did.
Whoever said that, I'm very grateful for you not only noticing but mentioning it. I think what we leave unsaid between us is very, very important. Much of the work that Irrfan and I have.
I think there's an issue there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, lost you for a while. Little bit of a connectivity issue. Lost you for a while.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So I was saying that much of the work that Irrfan and I have done together has been without words. And often we could just look at each other, or I could make a small gesture, or he would make a small gesture, and we would understand that this is to go in a slightly different way, you know. So I think the unsaid sometimes allows us to work at a deeper level than words can sometimes to lead us into deeper levels where words sometimes cannot take us, you know. So it's enough.
your, you know, very interesting anecdote you had told me about Irrfan, and you know, when he was when he was in makeup actually, and a lot of people thought, "Ye Sardaji kya kar rahe hain yahan pe?" But you know, going back to Irrfan, and you know, keeping in you know, the spirit of this discussion.
Yes.
Ritik Ghatak, you know, you've always thought him to be, you've always thought of him as your teacher. And you've said that I go back to him every day.
Yes.
And Irrfan Khan, you went to him. So from Ghatak to Irrfan, give us that enormous bandwidth that you could access, that you could reach out to. It must have made your canvas that much more richer. So from a director like Ghatak to an actor like...
Yeah. I'm sorry, breaking and...
Ever to write a book, if you were ever to write a book, how would you intersperse these two chapters? The chapter on Ritik Ghatak, the chapter on Irrfan Khan.
I'm sorry, you know, in between you are breaking up a lot, and I'm afraid I might have lost
okay, so
the flow of your question.
Right. So my question was that, you know, you talked about you talked about Ritik Ghatak being your teacher.
Yes.
You have said कि मैं हर दिन Ritik Ghatak के पास जाता हूँ. I go to him. And then you have Irrfan Khan, the actor.
Yes.
If you were ever to write a book, अगर आप अपनी कहानी कभी भी लिखते हो, तो उसमें आप ऋतिक घटक वाली चैप्टर से शुरू करोगे या इरफान खान वाली चैप्टर से शुरू करोगे, या आप ऋतिक घटक से एंड करोगे या इरफान से एंड करोगे? कभी आपने इसके बारे में सोचा है कि इतना बड़ा कैनवस है आपके पास?
Actually, you know, I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a storyteller, so I'll tell you a story.
Right.
When I was at FTI, at that time, there was no corner at the Film Institute which did not have some story about Ritik Ghatak. You know, here he sat, here he kicked someone, here he spoke about Bresson, here he spoke about Gurudat, you know, here he cursed someone. So every corner of the Film Institute has a story about Ritik Ghatak. Now, the head of my department, direction department at FTI, was a man at that time called Rahat Yusufi. Very, very important to me. And once, I think at around 4:30 in the morning, he came and banged at our doors in the boys' hostel, you know. And, you know, we were students, so that means we were sleeping at 2, 3 o'clock. And 4:30, here is our head of department waking us all up. So we all get up. Well, most of us get up. And he says, we are going somewhere, follow me. Yeah. So he takes us to the back of the Film Institute, where there is a little hill. And on this hill is so he takes us up this hill, and at the edge of the sit down, and he around you. Look at the grass. Look at the grass around you. Don't look at the sunrise. Look at the grass around you and how the grass will slowly change its color, how it will slowly catch light. Don't look at the sunrise. So there we were at the edge of the hill with the sunrise in front of us, but we had been told by our teacher not to look at the sunrise, but instead to look at the grass around us. And it was one of the most magical moments in my life. And I think I understood something about cinema there that I wouldn't have understood in any other way, is that how slowly, steadily, life comes into presence. How light is such a delicate, fragile thing that it touches something and that thing becomes alive. How out of the shadows, light brings something out. This quality of light, shadow, movement, gesture, is something that you learn in the cinema of Hrithik Ghatak. That his stories are very, very powerful is true. That he is one of the most provocative and challenging filmmakers of India. That is true. But he is also one of the most gentle filmmakers in Indian cinematic history, because he teaches you without telling you as to how fragile we all are. And this is the same quality that I found in Irrfan's performances. That is why we love him so much. Not only because of these incredible characters that he has played, from Maqbool to Piku, for example, or from Umber Singh to Adam in my films. All right. But because underneath all these characters, he has shown us again and again the fragility of life and how we need to celebrate every little nuance, every little moment of it. He actually teaches us, without ever saying, how to savor life, how to taste it. It is a great gift that he has given us. And to me, that is the legacy of his acting, And it is a legacy that I hope the younger filmmakers, actors, other people of cinema will actually take from him. It is a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
You've visited a lot of festivals with him, and how did you find him? He had a terrific international appeal.
Yes.
Be it Ron Howard and Ang Lee, and such great tributes that have come in.
Yes.
Those beautiful tributes from The Guardian to Vanity Fair to New York Times, and truly, I think it kind of celebrates not only him, but with him Indian cinema.
Absolutely.
So where do you think this is the COVID era, and the whole paradigm has shifted. With this paradigm shift and with the kind of level that Irrfan has taken our cinema to, how do you reimagine the world that Irrfan has left for us, for our fraternity, in an era after the lockdown is over, after the pandemic has settled? How do you reimagine that world in terms of cinema?
I have two answers here. One, I think cinema will stay. It will find its way, and the big, the loud, the gargantuan, the gigantic, will obviously find cinema houses. Yes. What about the smaller films? What about the more reflective films? I must say to you that I'm a little worried about that. because whether it is larger cinemas or it is the OTT platforms, I do not think that there is a kind of support for the really independent films that we had hoped we would find from the streaming channels. You know, what we do find are support of films which would still, in some way or the other, get some kind of a release in cinemas if the streaming channels were not there. But the films like, let's say, Gurvinder Singh's films or Pushpendra's films, you know, I'm not sure that there is a platform really for them consistently. You know, one off, two off, yes, possible, it will happen. But consistently, that such films will have an audience or will be able to reach an audience, I'm very scared that they will not, you know. So in these circumstances, I have a sense of hope elsewhere, you know. And this sense of hope comes from the younger producers in world cinema today and in India, you know. I know of many producers in India today at this moment who are making, you know, a list of films that they would like to produce. And they have been very, very careful in the making of that list. Let's say they want to make blockbusters because that's where the money is and it will give them the money for their next films. But with these two blockbusters, they do want to produce a smaller film, an independent film with an independent filmmaker, you know. Now, how will this work? There are, I think, some good examples. Drishyam films, for example, I think has played this field very, very beautifully and carefully, you know, that for films which are very audience friendly to films which are challenging, you know. In the same way, NFDC has played a tremendous part in this, whereas unfortunately NFDC has not found a way of distributing these films, you know. They have actually allowed the making of these films, which means that there's a greater awareness in India today that there is this other kind of cinema. And slowly, steadily, there is an audience demand, you know, that we want to see these films. So slowly, let's say from a screening in a university or in a college, you know, maybe a small cinema will appear where these films will be shown. Yeah. That is my hope. That has also been the dream, I know, of NFDC. And I hope this dream, post the pandemic, will come true.
Anup, here I want to tell you that you know, we've created two platforms. Of course, there's the production platform which you've been involved in with Qissa. Our OTT platform,
Yes.
www.cinemasofindia.com,
Yes.
is something that is now getting a lot of traction because people are, I think, audiences across the world and audiences in India are now getting habituated, as you rightly said, to watching both kinds of cinemas. You know, cinemas which kind of give you, a different high, and cinemas which give you a different kind of intensity. So there, I think NFDC with its video on demand platform has been able to now sustain that growth.
Yes.
There is also the other platform, which is Film Bazaar, which two of your films were in the co-production market, Qissa as well as Songs of the Scorpion. And, you know, that's another platform that has enabled independent cinema to not only find a voice globally. And, you know, we have festival directors and sales agents, distributors who've congregated at the bazaar, and there's a big co-production market, a work in progress. You'll be happy to know that our work in progress films, the 5 films from Film Bazaar, has actually tied up, NFDC has tied up with the Cannes Film Festival, and we will be showcasing them online. So we've been able to kind of, try and create a balanced growth, so that different voices of Indian cinema get their exposure. But yes, of course, our industry as such is very commercially kind of attuned, or kind of is more tweaked into that. But then I think the market will evolve, and with NFDC's efforts, and with the support of filmmakers like you, with the support of audiences and the people who've come up with this program.
That's what we really need.
Very, very important.
Of our audiences, yes.
जी, और हम बिल्कुल उम्मीद रखते हैं कि जिस तरह से हमें प्यार और मोहब्बत मिला है इस सेशन पे, मैं आपका बहुत ही शुक्रगुजार हूँ अनूप जी कि that you've been able to take this time. मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ हमारे NFDC के मैनेजमेंट पे जिन्होंने ये हमें एक मौका दिया इस चीज़ को करने के लिए, और मैं उम्मीद रखता हूँ कि we will be doing more and more of these sessions where we celebrate actors, we celebrate directors, and we celebrate stories that come from from our culture and our cinematic narratives. And it's of course in a larger environment of NFDC's effort to kind of push the domain of Indian cinema. आपके इस पे कुछ विचार हो जाए, और फिर I think we've chatted nearly for an hour and a half, I think.
Wow, okay. All right, that went very fast.
And, to all the audiences who've come on, who've taken their time on a Friday evening, from NFDC, from Anup Singh, आप सबको, हम बहुत शुभकामनाएं, और हम बिल्कुल आपके शुक्रगुजार हैं कि आप आए, and you've enriched us with your comments. Once again, I apologize for the internet connectivity with folded hands, and Anup, last words to you, and I think or we can carry on chatting, but all good things unfortunately have to come to an end. So maybe your last comments, and we'll take a few questions.
Yeah, let me just share one last story about Irrfan before we come to the questions, because I think it tells us something of him off the set. This happened during Qissa, and it also tells you how we are so close together. This happened during Qissa. I was being harassed a lot by one of the international producers of the film. And one particular day was really, really bad. I was completely desolated by this person's behavior. And I went to my room that evening, really exhausted and very, very sad that, that we had to make films in these kind of circumstances. And a little later, Irrfan came in. And he came in with his whole music system, And he himself, he set up his music system, his speaker, his player. He attached it to the electric connection. And very slowly, he started playing Nusrat Ali Fateh Khan.
Acha.
Yeah. He came, he sat down in my room. He set up the system. He started playing the music. That night, I think he made me at least 20 cups of tea himself, And he sat with me throughout that night, just playing music, Nusrat. Throughout the night, he just kept playing Nusrat. We hardly spoke, And it was only early in the morning, I think, when finally I was smiling that he left, So that was Irrfan. That is the kind of support that he gave to his director, And that is the kind of man he was, who had to shoot the next morning, But he didn't worry about himself. He just came and made sure that I was fine. And he was the one who made me fine.
Anup, a very interesting question has come up. Was there ever a moment that you and Irrfan were not on the same page, and how did you resolve it?
It's very strange. That never really happened.
I see.
Never, never ever happened. Not once. There was one little thing, but again, it tells you a great deal about Irfan, so I'll narrate it. I was setting up a shot, and I'd asked him to stand in the great distance, and setting up the shot was taking a little time. He kept on standing, he didn't say, okay, get someone to stand for me, he kept on standing. And then I think after about 15, 20 minutes, he went and sat down. So I called out and said, Irfan, please stand. And he got up and he stood. Later, I found out that he had dislocated his back.
Oh.
Yeah, he had dislocated his back. And when the shot was over and he came towards me, the only thing he said is, the shot ho gaya. I said, thank you. I didn't know he had dislocated his back at that point. So he said, shot ho gaya? I said, yes. He said, kabhi aise shot ke liye, mujhe thoda break de diya karo tum. And he left. So I was wondering, kya ho gaya, And then I realized that despite the tremendous pain that he was in, he stood for the shot. While the shot was on, he didn't say anything. Only at the end of the shot did he make a small complaint,
Right. I guess when he says that it's a responsibility to the character, I guess that's what he meant, and to the filmmaker. Anup, there's a question on your East African roots, and though you've spoken about it on your creative journey and the linkage, and though you've addressed it, Anup, but if you can just summarize it in a very, if you could keep it in a summary.
I was born, brought up in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, East Africa. My father was born, brought up also in East Africa. Much before the partition of India, due to an attack on his village in Rawalpindi, what is Pakistan today, the whole family of my grandfather was killed, and he and his little sister somehow were protected by another family, and they found out that they had relatives in Africa. There were no other relatives left. So my grandfather and his little sister were sent to Africa, and then we grew up there. In 1971, at the time of Idi Amin, there was a political sort of demand that Europeans, Americans, and Indians leave East Africa. And my father was threatened, and we left by ship to come to Bombay. My father had never left Africa. He was 40 years old at that time. This was the first time that he was going to India. We were on the ship. We were very, very sad. My father really depressed. And it was only, I think, on the third night that we went to the deck of the ship. And we went because we heard certain sounds. And there was a film screen which was being put up. A really big, large film screen which was being put up on the deck of the ship. And that night they showed us a Hindi film. And I think that helped us, the whole family and me in particular, that helped us to reconcile ourselves with the world. Because above us was this incredible, infinite sky, and below us was this great ocean, and in between was cinema. I really felt at that time, at that moment, I was 12, 13, that I had found my home. And this was it. So that was my East African little story.
Right. And Anup, we can carry on chatting. Well, do you remember which film? I think you said you would like it to be Sahib Bibi Gulam, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers
Yes.
one of the questions was which
Yes.
film.
I don't remember what film it was that I saw, but I want to believe that it was Sai Bibi or Gulam.
Anup, what's next?
It's a very strange time for me, as you might imagine, Vikramjit. The passing of Irfan really devastated me, and I think for quite a while I was numb. I was really paralyzed. I couldn't do anything. He and I, as you might know, had planned to do our third film now, and it was a film that he was really joyous about. He was very keen. We were both very keen to do this film. So after about a little time of it passing, I started rewriting. I started a second draft of the script. And something strange happened, Vikramjit. I felt such joy in that writing because I had felt that Irfan and I will never work again. But now, as I write every word, every dialogue, every gesture that I write, I feel I'm still working with him. And that fills me with tremendous, tremendous joy. I'm very grateful for this feeling. So this is what the lockdown has meant to me, that it has brought my friend very, very close on a daily basis, not only in my life, but back again to working together.
Right, this is so beautiful. And, on behalf of, is there something that you would, sorry, there's a question which is coming in terms of where do you see cinema 5 years from now? And if you could address that, please.
I think this is a question that the audience has to ask itself. What cinema do they want to see 5 years from now? Because we can blame each other. Filmmakers can say, oh, the audience wants to see this, so this is what we are going to give them. The audience says, oh, this is what we keep on getting, but we want to see something else and we never get it. All right. How do we take the agency of our own desire? Let's find a way together to make sure that we do get to see the films that we want to see. All right. Let's find a way. Let's have more discussions. Let's get groups together. Let's walk the streets. Let's support each other, filmmakers and audiences, all of us. Let's really come together and find a way for us outside the business patterns. And then slowly, I am sure the business will come around us too. But we need to initiate things together.
Right. And I think it kind of, I assure you as a filmmaker that NFDC will stand in this journey when you talk about coming together.
Yeah.
NFDC will stand there. And on behalf of all my colleagues at NFDC, I feel that, we would be there for the filmmaker, and our own narrative, the NFDC's narrative, will always be to support independent cinema, to support films which, come from the cinematic diversity that India has. That assurance I can give you on behalf of all my colleagues. And a warm thought to end on would be, I guess, his legacy lives. And it is for us now to take that baton and to keep working with that same zeal and enthusiasm to push our cinema and to tell our stories to greater audiences and kind of enrich lives. Your last thoughts, and Anupji, I leave it to you, and then last concluding remarks, and we'll wrap.
Thank you, Vikramjit. Thank you, NFDC. You know, I think of my gurus, I think of my ustads, and NFDC is certainly one of my gurus. You know,
Thank you.
Been supportive. It has taught me a lot, and it has brought me such great friends. You know.
Thank you.
In terms of a few words that I can say at this moment, I say something about my friend. I say something about Irrfan. I agree absolutely with Vikramjit that Irrfan has left us a tremendous legacy. I think we spoke about it earlier, and I would say that there is an honesty of emotion and a fragility of emotion, because as an actor, Irrfan has never tried to manipulate us with easy emotions. He has always taken us deeper. And he has shown us that we need to find within ourselves that not authenticity, but that play and that respect for those hidden emotions that often lead to violence or often lead to misunderstanding. You know, let's bring them forth. Let's share it with others. And I would say to young filmmakers and young actors whom Irrfan loved a lot, there were many that we spoke about. Please keep this legacy in mind. Do not belittle our profession by taking an easy way out, you know, emotionally or story-wise, or by taking an easy shot, or by making a cliched gesture. Let's give ourselves and let's give our world something that we can be proud of, and something that Irrfan will look down at us and say, "Arey Janab, kya baat hai?"
क्या बात है। और मैं उम्मीद रखता हूँ कि इस विचारधारा को लेके हम चलें, आगे बढ़ें। मैं आपको फिर से विश्वास दिलाता हूँ अनूप जी कि एनएफडीसी और जितने भी हमारे कलीग्स हैं, हमारे मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर हैं कल्याणी जी, उनकी जो दिखाई हुई मार्ग है, जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इतनी सपोर्ट कर रही है, और मैं उम्मीद रखता हूँ और मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूँ कि एनएफडीसी will always stand with filmmakers. We will create more enriching cinema, and of course, you know, showcase the cinematic diversity of the cinemas of India. On this warm note, I want to thank you once again. I want to thank all our viewers for coming in. और मैं फिर से माफी चाहता हूँ for our connectivity issues. Thank you, Anup. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Lovely. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.